This is Chris Hansen.
Chad doing Rip City Radio here.
It's your favorite basketball player, Tyler Hansbrough.
This is Jamie Hudson.
This is TJ Houshmandzadeh.
And I'm going to let y'all know something.
Duke sucks and Duke will always suck.
You're listening to
It Just Makes Sense.
It Just Makes Sense.
Football is back, and so are we, boys. Listen, this podcast is not about being right. It's about being entertaining, and sometimes right. But this is kind of like mental manipulation, if you think, and I appreciate
we're gaslighting the fuck out of you. Yeah.
I'm
sick of it.
I don't know if I'm going to come back next year. If I come back as a Jazz fan, who cares? Who
I'm done.
fucking cares about you, Aaron?
Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers when he starts winning.
Oh, my God. It was just kind of like, it was just like a grasp for relevancy, and I just don't care.
We're back. Clear eyes.
Full heart!
Can't lose.
Play like a champion!
Welcome to It Just Makes Sense. I'm Peter Sokach. All right?
Not nearly nasally.
Yeah, that was too much in the throat.
I'll do a better one.
Welcome to It Just Makes Sense, and I thought that would be a good segue to this. Never mind. All right. Cool hearts.
Can't lose.
Cool hearts.
Cool
Can you
heights.
imagine Coach Taylor in the heat of the battle? Cool hearts.
Cool hearts.
Hot legs, cool hearts.
So very close for us to be. We're almost done with Friday Night Lights. So 2 episodes away.
Wow.
I know. Look at us. 20 years later, finally, right when the reboot starts, we're about to get our.
Yeah.
You nagged the shit out of me and Mitch that we were so against the show. Him and I finished it before you did.
And I knew how good it was. And that's the thing. I
And
knew,
you'd never seen it?
I never finished it, but I knew how good it was.
You never finished shit.
Well, that's. You know why I get nervous about finishing shows.
Because of your experience with Dexter, one of the worst final episodes of all time.
You know how
But
bad
then they
things
brought
get.
it back, and you have more Dexter.
It's worse.
Well, the Dexter reboot wasn't terrible, right? The one.
I don't know.
Do you not rewatch it?
I haven't watched the reboot. I've seen all the original.
Yeah, the reboot was pretty okay. His son is, his son comes and finds him, and he realizes they're just as terrible as each other. Yeah, it's whole.
Oh, so they murder together.
No spoilers here. No spoilers here.
Wow.
Happy Thanksgiving week, boys.
Speak for yourself, Pete.
Thanksgiving week of It Just Makes Sense. A little bit delayed in the start of our podcast tonight because of the heated conversation about musicals.
I didn't think it was heated.
I didn't know that we had that much content to talk about musicals.
Yeah, I was not a part of it.
Yes, you were.
I just want to make that clear.
I feel like Lindsay and I could probably have a good, solid conversation about musicals for at least an hour.
So, 2 from the producers of It Just Makes Sense is whatever this podcast you and Lindsay are also going to start. You're going to be a busy guy. Now you're going to have that plus a lost resurfacing podcast and now a musical podcast.
Yeah. Miguel, did we tell you about the Lost idea?
Yeah, you did. Chose to move past it.
Yeah, we didn't even know the name of the main guy.
No, we don't.
So
Matthew Fox.
Sure. Jack Shepard.
Yeah, Dax's brother.
Dax's brother, exactly. So, let's see. We are our podcast as hot as Jared McCain's TikToks these days. So,
yeah.
I didn't know where.
Joel Embiid can just sit the whole season out.
Yeah,
they don't need him.
They don't need him.
I mean, seriously, it's got to do something to you when a guy like Jared McCain is just cooking you on a nightly basis. And I love it. I'm all here for it. I'm not here to, shit on the guy or anything. I absolutely love it.
He's getting clowned for what? Painting his nails, for doing TikToks. It's like you want, you can't force that to stop. You don't want to celebrate that? Beat him on the fucking court.
Sure.
But he's dropping 30 on you every fucking night,
Not
dude.
just irregularly, on a regular basis.
He's on the
now.
8-game He's on the 8-game streak of 34, 28. The worst game he had was 18 points. There's no way this guy doesn't win Rookie of the Year. And he's just so fucking happy to be there. The guy just has the biggest shit-eating grin on his face while he's playing ball.
It's one of those situations where people hate him because they're jealous. Because he at least gives off the impression that he's like very much happy and enjoying his experience. He's putting it out online. He's being vulnerable. And it's like, dude, if I could think of an ideal professional sports experience, it would be comparable to that, where I can just be myself, have fun, sing songs, and drop buckets.
Yeah. In a world of which, like, peer pressure and, like, how you should conform to a certain way is a thing. It's very nice to see Jared. And especially in that locker room, too, because the 76ers right now, like, all things considered, a dumpster fire. Like, they're having, like, you know,
They're
own...
combusting.
I mean, like, Joel Embiid's sitting out, and then they have this, like, players-only meeting in which then stuff gets leaked on it, and then he's like, I'm going to find the snitch. And it's like, come on, man.
It's the male professional sports environment.
And then there's Jared McCain going, woo, all right.
It's like if you, in the professional sports environment, if you're not an alpha male that's, you know, fucking macho, you're clowned on. But what's the alternative? You want this guy to, like, hate his life? You want him to, like, most people that get bullied like that, you want him to fucking do some drastic shit? Just be happy the dude's happy.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's killing you.
And it works when you score points, right? Because there have been others, and we've brought it up in the past, where, like, a youthful Myers Leonard in the past was kind of, like, crucified for his, like, youthful nature, because it's like he didn't back it up, right, as much as people were hoping that he would. So if you're scoring 34 points, it all works, right? It's like, what are you doing for me lately? And I think that
Myers really is our comparison to,
Yeah,
to Jared McCain.
yeah, what?
If you
goddamn
score
kidding me?
34 points a game, you can hate Jews.
Is that what you're saying?
Oh my God.
That's basically
That's
what you
not
said
where I was
in
going.
your own words.
I didn't even think about
In
that
your own words.
part.
That's kind of what you
That's kind
said.
of what you said.
You earn the right to drop a hard K. Is that what you're doing? No, come on. I did accidentally walk myself into that one. So look at you putting pressure on your right leg right now. There it is.
That's a terrible move.
Why?
You're ruining your dog.
That's where you got your tattoo. Braxton, I am the only one of virgin skin right now. So
That's right, bitch.
So Braxton gets his first ever tattoo. And of course, I'm going to go ahead and make this whole story about me. Because in the process of you getting that tattoo, you guys tried to pull a little okey doke on me.
True. That's a fact.
I mean,
Talk
about teeing shit up. This is something that you've been falling for years. Dude.
Yeah.
You just make it super easy.
Yeah.
This is what we know about Braxton. Braxton, since his medical deaths, has had a little bit of trouble in the car as it relates to.
Not since then. I've always had that.
Oh, okay, my bad. Well, you've died twice, so I'm going to add that in. So you get car sick easily.
I do.
Your skin reacts very easily.
Yep.
So
Sensitive skin.
you have sensitive skin. You have reactions. Your body has reactions to
True.
foreign substances.
True.
So you get your tattoo this weekend. You decided not to go on your arm, but rather your right thigh, right?
Yeah. And to your credit, the last time I had ink injected into my body, I went into anaphylactic shock.
Yeah, and you were literally in a coma. We're going to go ahead and say it's not outside the realm of possibility that I could see this not going well for you. So the day of your tattoo, Miguel starts texting our group chat.
Yeah, Miguel was with me.
And so Miguel was there. And he's saying, essentially, I'll paraphrase this, that Braxton is having a reaction to the tattoo. He's in the bathroom. He's vomiting. He's, like, acting, like, out of body, like he's drunk. We might need to drive him home. I don't know what's happening. There seemed to be some legitimate concern. And all that, too, is that we had met up the night before, and we were talking about our concerns about your tattoo the night before.
Oh. I didn't know that.
So that all happened, and then I hear this, and I'm just like, well, I've got my son. My wife is out running errands. I've got to figure out this whole thing. I'm trying to figure out how I can mobilize to help you, because I'm feeling like, oh no, all the things that we were worried about has now come to fruition. And then Miguel sends this like thing where he says, like, oh, I'm going to go home. We'll figure it out, blah, blah. We're still going to do Korean barbecue, though. Because no matter what, we're still going to get some
You gotta eat. You gotta eat.
thinly sliced
Especially
beef.
after you throw up. You got to eat.
Replenish. I've heard of
That's
it.
when I should have known that things were not going so well.
Exactly.
So finally, things wrap up. You give me a call, and I still have no context of what's happening. And then you go, I said, oh, wow, sounds like you really went through. You sure you want to do Korean barbecue? It's like, actually, things went pretty perfectly. And then I realized I got duped.
That's a fact.
And then you threw him under the bus and said it was all him.
That's not completely
you
true.
alluded to it. You just you failed to acknowledge any sort of culpability, accountability in your part in this.
What I told you was that the story that you heard Miguel came up with, and that is a fact. Who encouraged Miguel to create this story was never asked. And yes, I will admit it was my idea. I was sitting there. It's a 3.5 hour tattoo. We're sitting chilling.
You're bored,
And I was like, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we texted Pete and told him something had gone wrong?" From that point on, Miguel took the reins.
And who's the best at that?
Miguel.
You come up with something believable.
it's not just that it's believable. It is. I mean, it's beyond believable.
Yeah.
Right.
Spielberg the shit out of you.
It's not as if you.
He was even saying that in the tattoo shop. You ready for this next Spielberg twist?
And so that's the thing. Then the tattoo artist was in on it. I called you. You had a fake conversation with the
surprised-
tattoo artist.
I'm surprised you didn't hear me laughing in the background of that phone call.
You had a legitimate, and that's the thing. In hindsight, I realize all of this is insane because I go, this conversation is kind of happening quickly. You're like kind of, oh yeah, you can bring us on, okay, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, you have to respect committing to the bit. That's what it is.
Committed to the
And
bit.
he really did have that conversation. She was totally fine with you bringing her son. And then you hung up with him, and I was like, I don't think it's a good idea to have Brody running around here.
No.
And that's when we were like, okay, we need to take the foot off the gas here and be like, hey, he's okay. We'll hit you up.
Right. And there were warning signs. I should have known that. I should have known when Miguel decided to leave all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know.
He's fine. I'm out of here.
He's fine. He's good. He's gonna give it another go. So I guess
This is the thing is this is not gonna be the last time that you fall for anything.
Yeah.
the
I
thing.
wonder what will be, because I thought about this when we went to dinner afterwards. When will you, at what point will you be like, I just don't believe anything he says?
That's the thing, and this is what I warned you guys later on at the Korean barbecue, which was like the boy who cried wolf. At what point will I not believe it? Never. And then all of a sudden, and that's
That'll
the thing.
be a
like,
sad
should
day.
I
Never.
Right.
If it ever does come, which I don't think it will,
No.
it'll be a sad day.
Yeah. And I'm perfectly okay accepting that. Like I said, if
Are
I'm
you
dying
okay?
in a ditch and none of my friends answer, I'm like, yeah, this is how I go.
Well,
I earned this.
my fault.
My bad. Really overestimated my
I earned this.
lying skills.
And you're okay with accepting the responsibility of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Accountability. I don't like to blame shit on others.
No. There's no judgment behind that question.
I'll be dying on the side of 119th Avenue. None of my friends are answering my call.
122nd?
Yeah.
No, that's pretty safe.
The thing about this one is that it wasn't like a lie that was like outside the realm of possibility.
That's
And I
what
feel
Miguel
like-
specializes in.
Yeah, I suppose.
You don't try to dupe someone by creating a lie that's not believable.
That
at all.
is
It
also
doesn't
true.
track.
Yeah. Because like one of the other times was when you were telling me that you were going to lose your house during when we were at Fogo, and then you take the it was perfect. And I'm pretty sure we talked about it on the pod. You guys all get up to go to the salad bar, and he goes, dude, I think we're going to lose the house. And this was when they were in the inspection process because he was trying to convince me that something was going on with the financing and things weren't all going to, everything was fine except for there was going to be like a clerical error in which they were going to lose the whole house. And I was like, what can we do? Right? I'm like trying to problem solve for him because I've bought 2 or 3 houses at that point. And then.
You're so cool, Pete.
Timing is my forte.
It's very rude.
It's a gift.
Honestly, I think in all of these circumstances, from our end of the table, it is funny. But I will say, Pete, for you individually, you probably come away from it feeling dumb. But in the grand scheme, you always come out looking like a great person.
Yeah.
Even the tattoo artist was like, after we were doing all this stuff, and me and Miguel were like chuckling back and forth, like, haha, we got him again. And she was like, he sounds like a really good friend.
Think about in the like if we do this for the rest of our lives until we're fucking old and dying, and we are just pranking you all the time. If you buy into it every single time, it only shows that you care about helping.
Yes, that's true.
The moment that you're like, fuck you, whether it's fake or it's real, it's like it shows more about your character. You're like, I want to solve this. I want to help my friends. So it's not really a bad thing that you fall for.
At the end of the day, you look better than we do.
Yeah,
pulling the prank.
But this is kind of like mental manipulation, if you think. And I
we're
appreciate
gaslighting the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
Easy.
Because I appreciate the kind words, but you are literally putting me back on the rope again by saying, "Oh no, it's okay.
We're doing you a favor."
Right? Yeah.
Come on,
big favor.
What we're getting out of it is a very temporary satisfaction.
Yeah.
But in the long term, you come out looking better because you actually are willing to help.
I'm in an abusive relationship
How many
with my
times
podcast co-host.
We're going to be 70 years old, and Miguel and I are going to be like, let's call Peter and tell him you died.
Hey, Peter, I'm dead. How are you calling me?
He goes,
Who is this?
your fat ass been in the hospital 17 times in the last month. That's way too believable. I'm like, yeah, no shit, you idiot.
How can you be dead if you're calling me? However, that is one time I accidentally picked up a coworker's phone. This was when I was in my early 20s at the radio station that I worked at. We had the same case and everything. We were switching shows, whatever. I go to the bathroom. My phone starts ringing. I pick it up, and it says that my mom is calling me. I'm like, my mom's been dead for 10 years. Realized it was someone else's phone at the time.
Think about how mean that is when we're really fucking old, sitting on our porch, and then you joke. You joke to Peter that one of us is dead, and then he just loses it. He goes, "You know what deaths mean to me?" And I go, "Yeah, I know." Click.
It's very true. I'm in an abusive relationship with my podcast co-host.
That's okay.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, what do you got to show for? You ain't got no bruises.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, the bruises are inside.
Yeah.
The bruises are inside. Coach K at tonight's game.
Next to I refuse to call him by his real name. What was his hangover name? Mr. Chow.
Oh,
Mr.
Kim
Chow.
Jong.
Yeah, he's a Duke grad. He's at every Duke game. It's Mr. Chow.
The I love you ho.
I love you, ho. Calm down, ESPN.
Yeah,
that's her name.
That's her name. Calm down. The guy's name is Coit. How do you say that guy's name?
Cunt. What?
I'm gonna have to bleep that one out.
Why? You say that all the time.
Dude, you
No,
know
I've
You're the
never.
big-
Don't do that.
You're the biggest-
Do not attach me to that
Yeah,
word.
you do.
you know how normal of a word that is in fucking Europe?
It is.
I mean,
yeah.
they say
Australia?
cunt like every other word.
Yeah,
You
Charlie.
can't.
Yeah, they're well. You're serving it tonight. Just like Ohio State was serving it to Indiana this past week.
What I say.
Yeah.
At least 3 touchdowns.
There
What was
it
the final score?
There it was 38-15, I believe was the final
23.
score. So
Indiana. Here's the thing.
Tell me.
They were not going to be close the way Ohio State's been playing. But as much as we do and should care about strength of schedule, Indiana should not even be on the fringe of not making the playoffs if you're considering 3 lost teams. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, I understand, and we've said this over and over because of money and ratings. They are looking for a way to get Alabama in. There's just no fucking way. They got blown out by an average Oklahoma team. They got beat by a Vanderbilt team. I don't care if they have a fucking winning record. A 3-loss team does not belong in there. If a 3-loss team
but they beat
gets
Georgia.
like strength of schedule,
Georgia's trash too.
the thing is, this is including
number 7.
this is including strength of schedule talk. Yeah, they beat Georgia, but their losses in the strength of schedule also matters a lot.
Matters a lot.
It
yeah.
cancels out the Georgia win. But Indiana, yeah, they haven't played anyone. They're still 1 loss. There's no chance you are considering a 3-loss team over them. That's fucking disrespectful.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if your win over Georgia, let's say, is a +3 in your strength of schedule, your loss to Vanderbilt should be a -3. Your loss to Oklahoma should be a -3, and overall you should be below the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And it comes on a week, so Indiana loses. They lose big. It's their first loss of the year. I don't think any of us were terribly surprised by it. I was hoping for a little bit more of a fight, but,
I was definitely rooting for Indiana, but I'm not surprised.
Indiana, number 5, loses. Number 7, Alabama loses. Number 9, Ole Miss loses. Number 14, BYU, and number 15, Texas A&M all lose, creating such chaos across.
Colorado lost too, right?
And Colorado loses to Kansas. So it creates such chaos within the whole week, which I guess potentially in the grand scheme of things, like dampens the calls for Indiana a little bit. So this was kind of best case scenario in a way for Indiana to know that they can still be there. When last week we were talking about, does a 1-loss Indiana team deserve to not be within the rankings? And if I can bring up our college football rankings now, obviously we have Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise State are still your 1 through 4. Your college football playoff looks like this: Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, number 3, Texas, Penn State 4, Notre Dame 5, kind of finding their way back into that 5th slot like we talked about. Miami 6, but again, this is just within the rankings itself. They've got that first-round bye. Georgia 7, Tennessee 8. SMU jumps 4 spots from 13 to 9. Indiana drops 5 to 10. Boise State up 1 to 11. Clemson 12. And then you've got Alabama outside. But when you look at where things rank, Ole Miss, Alabama both lose. Then you've got Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina all right kind of outside looking in.
This is what I meant. I'm not saying, again, I'm not anti-12-team playoff, but I'm saying the same problems we face, the same arguments with the 4-team is coming up now because they are still looking for a way, the same way that the whole Florida State argument last year. Now it's Alabama. How can we figure out a way to get these fuckers in here? They have shown over and over this is not the same team you should be scared of. Yeah, they have such a massive fan base and fucking alumni and booster and all that, but they just don't belong in the playoffs.
If the playoff for today, you'd have Ohio State 5 facing number 12, Arizona State, number 8 versus number 9 of Georgia, Tennessee. Then you have 6-11, Penn State, Indiana, and then Notre Dame, SMU at 7-10.
Georgia, Tennessee, the winner of that plays Oregon, right?
The winner of Tennessee Georgia would play Oregon in its current state, correct?
Well, not necessarily. The lowest seed that comes out from all of those games.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. So
This is just currently as it stands.
Yeah. So if the 7 wins and then one of the 8-9 wins.
And I think that's the
We'd play
thing
one of
too.
the
Like, I mean,
8-9s.
we saw in the 14 playoff is to think that like within the quarterfinals here that you're not going to see like a ton of blowout wins, losses, or whatever on either side. Like, there's the hope that one can see a competitive game, but I think that the way that we've seen this ranking shake out and kind of the parity so far where you're potentially trying to make a case for a 3-loss team to get in or whatever, it's like, can one still, what is the competitiveness versus like, are they just going to be blowouts?
But that's
Is number 12 able to compete with a 5?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have proof of this. The thing is, we tend to take for granted knowing certain players from past games that were kind of revered as great games, right? Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma and Boise State. We'd be lying if we say that we knew fucking Ian Johnson and all these guys like before that game. Yeah, they were playing well, hence why they made the Fiesta Bowl, but these guys were not being talked about the same way that everybody is. And then they went and beat fucking Oklahoma.
Right.
And now that's considered one of the greatest games. That's the best part of this. This is creating some sort of a March Madness feel because a 12 could absolutely beat a 1, especially this year.
Especially because I feel like they timed this really intelligently, where they opened up the transfer portal, they made that kind of a wild, wild west, and they moved the playoff to 12 teams. So now we're seeing these historically dominant programs like in Alabama, like in Georgia, that they don't have that same strength across their roster because some of these guys that would be more than happy to be a 4th string guy on their team are going to be a 1st string guy on a SMU, on a BYU, on any of these kind of fringe teams. And we're seeing how this is making this new playoff structure work. And we're seeing these teams that we wouldn't expect to be a part of it. And all of that put together, I think, is so great. Like, the fact that Alabama is the team, like, because you're absolutely right, Miguel. Earlier in this season and last year when we were talking about what the 12-team playoff would bring, you were super staunch on the fact that the number 13, 14, 15, 16 teams, they're going to have as much of an argument as the 5, 6, 7 teams in the old structure. Nothing's going to change. But I think the part you were wrong about is that the conversation about those teams includes teams like Alabama, includes some of these juggernaut blue bloods that we now have to consider not being in the picture at all, which I think brings a whole new aspect to the college football dynamic as a whole.
So when it comes down to where things lay out, what in Ohio State, despite everything, Oregon had the bye week this past week, or Ohio State remains the presumptive, I guess, odds favorite. How do you guys see things right now with the current makeup? And if you were to see any of these teams right now, of maybe the 7 through 12, who do you think could make the biggest noise in a couple of months?
There's
from
two
now?
conversations because I think the parity in this season, it makes it hard to predict. Like, would I be surprised if Oregon wins a national championship? I wouldn't. Would I be surprised if Tennessee or Georgia wins a national championship? I wouldn't be either. But if you're thinking about betting wise and who has the odds, I understand why it's not Oregon, because Ohio State has proven that they've been able to go all the way. So the people that have won natties before, they're going to get favored because Oregon is, even though they haven't tripped the same way that they have before joining the Big Ten, you're going it from a Vegas point of view, going, we haven't seen these guys win the whole thing. So why would we favor them even though they're number one and they're undefeated.
Yeah, and it sounds like Ohio State is like with the way that the bettors are playing this is that Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship and then they get the first round bye. I think that's kind of the way that it sounds like this.
And Ohio State's, and then
they wouldn't look at them as if they were in a not champion.
And they've also been playing lights out since their loss to Oregon. Their only loss was to the number one undefeated team.
Sure.
And then you take into account their name and the powerhouse program that they are.
A road loss on kind of a fluke play or like a trick play.
It's close enough. Yeah. I mean, it was a 1-point game. So I get it. Nothing's still guaranteed. Like, would you be shocked if Boise State wins the whole thing? I don't think I would.
I would.
I don't
definitely be shocked.
I'd be pretty shocked if Boise State won, but I wouldn't be surprised.
And I'd also I think that would be fun as hell.
It would.
If Oregon's not going to win, Boise State would be a lot of fun.
I think I would be more shocked if Boise State wins the national championship in the old format. Because the thing with this new one is you can avoid certain teams.
Yeah.
You could go to the national championship game not playing Georgia.
That's true.
Not playing Ohio State. There's technically a way for some teams to get there without running into a juggernaut.
It's the same thing with March Madness. Like, did you get the right quadrant of the bracket?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, which one is the path of least resistance?
Yeah, did in the bottom half of the bracket, I don't know all the rankings, an 11 be a 6 or whatever.
But the beauty of March Madness that's kind of being brought in somewhat to this 12-team playoff is if you are placed in the portion of the bracket where you have one tough game and you pull that off and you win it, the confidence that it brings to your fucking team, and then every team's technically skill level-wise is below the team that you just beat, you can cruise.
Yeah.
That's like a Florida Gulf Coast beating Michigan State on the 2-15 and going, yeah, we can make it to the fucking natty. We can do this.
Well, what about your boys down in the desert?
Dude, that's fucking impressive. That win was fucking impressive. ASU was never talked about leading up to the season. I don't even know anything about that coach. I just know he's fucking psycho.
And he's super young.
And he was from Oregon.
He's like a 12-year-old fucking psychopath with
He's an
anger
Oregon
problems.
Offensive coordinator, as I remember.
And he's like 33.
ASU makes it there. That is a team you do not want to lose to. Fuck, man. Like that.
That game was unbelievable.
The way that ended, where everyone rushes the field, people are pulling down.
I've never
posts,
seen anything like that.
and then they're reviewing it.
It took a half an hour.
It did. It was crazy.
The thing with ASU is like, was that an impressive win? Yes. Was it surprising? Not really. And it's less about how good or bad ASU is. It's because BYU's put themselves in the position like that 3 or 4 times this season.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have won the Utah game.
No, that's very, as somebody who grew up following and watching BYU a lot, this season is very typical BYU.
Sure. BYU could easily have 3 losses this season.
Yeah.
The Utah game is one. The ASU game is another. And Nevada?
I think that's true.
Nevada or UNLV or something. They could easily have 3 losses. I mean, they have been putting themselves in that position, and they've gotten lucky. The Utah game, they got really fucking lucky in that Utah game.
Listen, you're talking about people who put themselves in a position. That was a pretty good talk.
We got
the Duke game back in the
Jesus
background.
Christ, that was a Jordan dunk, dude.
It was right behind this camera. I was like, I don't know if Miguel saw that.
I don't care if they lose this game. That highlight alone was worth it.
That was pretty good.
Holy shit, play it again.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh my God.
Cooper flag, top of the key, the little pick and roll.
Get
Bam!
the fuck out of here. Holy shit, dude.
Woo!
This
Yeah.
kid, he's 17.
Yeah, that's one.
He's fucking 17. I was stealing cars at 17. The whole fucking world's watching him.
No, but you talk about like a team that puts themselves in the position. ASU, I feel like, and I said this earlier tonight, it feels like ASU at the very end of the game always has like Kyle Dillingham, whatever, at the end just yelling at officials with like 2 seconds to go. The final play always like comes down to the wire. He's always screaming, and then they always win. So
Maybe you could say
chaos.
the team's a reflection of their coach. They're just playing like absolute fucking psychos with nothing to lose right now.
Absolute psychos with nothing to lose. And there will be a team that is plays with nothing to lose at this point. Colorado falls this weekend to Kansas.
God. Yeah.
It was, not a close effort. And the first thing that I want to talk about is that they're not going to win the Big 12. And Coach Prime comes out and says, hey, regardless of how things go this week, and they need like 2 of the top teams to lose, ASU, BYU. They need a lot to swing their way in order to even like get into the championship.
The thing you could appreciate about Prime, which I know you won't because you hate him, but he's like, when these things happen, when it's not all sunshines and rainbows when it comes to a Colorado game,
yeah,
he doesn't fight the media. He's like, we got humbled. We got our asses kicked because we thought we had arrived. We had listened to what everyone was saying, and we fucking got killed by 16 points by a Kansas team that's like had 2 wins in the season.
Yeah. So he did say that regardless of the outcome, he said Shador and Travis Hunter will both play in whatever bowl game they end up in, which I think is good. A lot of players of their caliber would sit out of fear of potential, injury or anything like that. But that leads us to our next conversation in the Heisman, and we talked about it last week. It seems like it's down to Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. Now, a lot of people think that it's Travis Hunter. The betting favorite at minus 1,000 is Travis Hunter. And regardless of it, and let me lay out the stats here, is that Travis Hunter is in the top 50 and in the bottom half, like 50 to 56 in all of these relevant categories. Obviously, he plays both ways. Ashton Jeanty is top 1 and top 4. The worst category that he ranks in is like 4th in any of these relevant stats.
People don't know what point they want to argue when it comes to this.
Sure.
And it's absolutely ridiculous. It just shows how stupid some people are, or they're just trying to justify their point, which just say that you prefer one player over the other. Don't try to justify it by coming up with these stupid reasons that you think are facts, but they're not. Because strength of schedule matters in the college football playoff ranking. Strength of schedule does not matter in the fucking Heisman race.
It does not.
It does not matter at all. But that keeps getting brought up. Okay, let's bring that shit up then, just for fucking shits and giggles. Strength of schedule ranking for Colorado is 73rd. Boise State, 77th. One's 8-3, one's 9-1. Okay, can we push that to the side? Cool. What's another argument? You haven't seen anyone do what Travis Hunter is doing. Yes, we fucking have. We've seen Charles Woodson do it. We've seen a 3 or 4, maybe not win the Heisman, but we've seen people play both ways.
Right, but didn't Woodson win a Heisman?
Not to the level that this is. And I do agree with your point up to this. Because Charles Woodson, he played some offensive snaps. He wasn't like a starting receiver, number 1 receiver. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
he did it for sure, but definitely not to the level that we're seeing now.
Sure. Okay.
It would be hard to find another person within the last 50 years who has played the number of snaps at the predominant level
and starting in both positions.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's take that argument then, and let's take those stats that Travis Hunter has put up, and then you compare it to what Ashton Jeanty has put up. Because another thing that's playing against him is, running backs have put up 2,000 yards before and didn't win the Heisman. So fucking what? He has exceeded that by a lot. The number of touchdowns by a fucking lot. Not even counting the fact that everyone knows who he is. He's not flying under the radar. They know what he's going for, whether he's stat padding or not. They know what he's going for. And he's still getting 140 a game with 30 yards receiving and 2 or 3 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, and he surpassed Derrick Henry,
who
won the Heisman.
And the fact that the race is not close odds-wise, at minus 400 and plus 250 or something like that,
Right.
is fucking ridiculous.
Honestly, the one thing, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this, the one thing that I think kind of hasn't been in Jeanty's favor is that he kind of makes it look too easy. Like seeing him do this week in, week out, and to get also understand the conference he plays in, the opponents that he has. It's like, oh, this is too easy. If you take any, big Power 5 running back, they'd be able to do the same thing at Boise State. I kind of feel like it's working against him.
So it's kind of like in The Incredibles at the end of the movie where Dash is running the 100-meter dash, and then they go, no, slow up a little bit here because we don't want you to blow out these kids, even though you have remarkable speed.
But
anyone who's seen the movie would know that.
It's exactly like that, Peter.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Though? Okay.
But
why
I couldn't
is he
agree
the-
more.
If that is a point that a lot of people are making, why is that only going to him? Why can't we say the same thing about Travis Hunter?
Because he plays in the Big 12.
Their strength of schedule is 4 rankings apart.
I'm not saying that that's a reasonable argument, but that's what the argument was. That's a Power 5 conference.
It's a Power 5 conference, but they just lost to a 2-win Kansas team. Because that argument falls into the strength of schedule, regardless if it's Power 5 or not. It falls into the strength of schedule. Who's in the fucking Big 12 that Colorado's beaten? And then who they lost to?
Yeah.
You cancel all those things out. Let's put Travis Hunter in the fucking SEC or the Big 10 and play Ohio State, play Oregon, play all of these teams. Will he put up the same stats? I just don't think this is a runaway for either, and it bothers me that the odds is that far apart. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, you would like it to be a toss-up.
I think at the end of the day, all things equal, one plays 2 positions and 100+ snaps a game. The other plays 1 position and 50, 60 snaps a game.
And
because outside of that, I think that you could argue until your fucking ears pop off.
But the only thing I would say against that is if you are taking into account playing 2 positions and starting in the number of snaps versus 1, if Travis Hunter is putting up absolutely absurd stats, like Ashton Jeanty type of stats, even in 1 position, it'd be no question. But Ashton Jeanty's stats make up for the fact that the other one's playing 2 positions. No one in the history of college football has put up these fucking stats. The only thing he's chasing that he's about to beat is Barry Sanders' yards, which he will. And at that point, that makes up for it.
Yeah.
That makes up for it.
But again, you can also argue nobody's played 2 position and put up the kind of stats that Hunter is. So I think you can play both sides of the nobody's done this. I think that the more debate that is done, I think you find more reasons. Hey, this guy's doing this that nobody's ever done. Oh, this guy's also doing things that nobody's ever done.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Travis Hunter is, like, in all the wide receivers, is, like, 56th in the nation, right? Like, you would think, like, oh, this guy's gonna, blowing you out of the water. So there's the 2 sides of him playing both sides.
But here's the argument. He's the 56th wide receiver, whatever. Name another receiver that's ranked in the top 60 that's a top 20 corner.
Right. And that's the other side because he's allowing, like,
he's
top 50 as a corner.
And there's a real like debate or challenge that NFL teams are going to have if they draft him. What do? Do we want Travis Hunter the receiver or the corner?
Let's take every argument that we could do and let's just go by one. And let's go by the definition of a fucking Heisman, which is the most valuable player in college. If you take Travis Hunter out of Colorado, yeah, I'll give it to you. They might not do as well. But Shador's there. Colorado has always been Travis Hunter and Shador. Name another Boise State player.
Colorado player. Or no, I
name
get
another
what-
Boise
yeah,
State player.
Yeah.
Without Ashton Jeanty, Boise State does not do what they have been doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Shador still exists which we've seen them win a game with Hunter out.
Yeah.
You tell me, can Boise State win a game without Ashton Jeanty?
No.
They would not.
No, and they have a
That's
first
the
round bye
definition of a
right now.
fucking
And I
Heisman.
think those are the two outlying arguments. You have the dual position argument for Travis Hunter, and then you have the team can't exist without me argument for Jeanty.
Yeah, and here's the third, is the biggest X factor of it all, and I think you guys know where I'm going with this. It's the
Dick size.
It's the prime effect, and I think
Sure.
that like without the eyeballs, without the attention of Deion Sanders at Colorado, like, do we talk about this in the same vein?
That's absolutely accurate because everyone's saying,
Who would have thought?
I was not expecting that.
but if you think about it, people that are making the argument Boise State hasn't played anyone
Yeah.
would say the same fucking thing about Colorado if they're not getting all this TV time.
Yeah.
But Colorado's prime time. You know, they're shown in prime time games. It's prime, it's Shador, it's fucking Travis Hunter.
It's one of the greatest recruiting tools that you can have when you are Coach Prime as well. To be like, no matter what, you can defy all of these odds and win a Heisman. Despite all of the things that you see in front of you, this guy ranks first, fourth. And you can rank XYZ, but because of these eyeballs, you play like this. The prime effect is real.
Yeah.
And I think that it is, I think both are deserving. I 1,000% agree on this side. Ashton Jeanty is the difference maker. You are not a first-round bye of a team. And the fact that it is just seemingly such a runaway is absurd.
Especially if Boise State
so absurd.
ends up getting that number 4 spot, that bye, because they rank higher than the Big 12 champion. That would be, I think, a big piece of him winning.
What a way if Jeanty doesn't win the Heisman and Boise State makes it to the national championship, what a way to tell people, go fuck yourself.
No joke. And the thing is, all of that's going to be awarded even before all of these things happen, which is
The final rankings?
no. I mean, the Heisman is going to be awarded. Sorry, I was taking a bit of a leap. That all of the things that happen within the playoffs, say that Ashton Jeanty gets into the playoffs and does all the things that we hope he might do. All of that's going to happen after the final results of the Heisman.
Yes.
So,
But at least they would know where they're ranked
yeah.
when they do the Heisman.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes,
No,
yes,
for sure.
yes.
A couple of exciting games. Obviously, you've got Alabama, Auburn this week, the Iron Bowl. We've got Oregon, Washington.
Yeah, it's
this
pretty
week.
much rivalry week.
It
right?
is rivalry week. You've got Oregon State playing Boise State at 9 o'clock Pacific time. I mean, it's going to be 10 a.m. in Boise. Is the game that we get this week between Boise State and
Is
Oregon
that Friday
State.
or Saturday?
It's on Friday.
I mean, that makes sense. Oregon State is not a good team. Yeah, they rush the field. They have a losing season. And Boise
They beat
State's in the
Washington
playoffs.
State.
They-
It was
they won the
great.
Pac-2.
Yeah, they did.
Boise
win the
State's about to
Pac-2.
fucking run through them.
So,
Did I tell you guys? I told you guys I'm going to Arizona on Friday.
I don't think I knew that. Oh, yeah, the funeral. That's coming up.
Memorial service,
Memorial,
actually.
My bad. The celebration of life. Yes, you're right.
And I didn't really consider rivalry week.
Yeah, with Oregon, Washington coming up.
And so I'm trying to figure out what's the most appropriate way to sneak in some football.
So the service is on Friday.
Saturday.
On Saturday. And Oregon plays
Four.
at 4 p.m.? All right, so. Do you get the hour? I forget at what point Arizona is.
I think we're the same right now.
You're saying right now. Okay.
No. We're different. They're an hour ahead.
So it'll be 5:30.
Yes.
Okay.
And the memorial is at 1:30.
You'll be all right. You'll be done.
But there's stuff after. But
Yeah, you'll be good and happy.
I
and dandy
got
by then.
it on my phone.
Yeah, the Oregon a 19-point favorite against Washington. So.
You always hate to be the guy, though, after a memorial service, everybody's like taking pictures and sharing memories, and you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oregon just scored again.
And what you do is you say, he would have wanted this. She would have wanted this. Sorry, that was grandpa,
Yeah.
not a grandma.
She's
She would've
never
wanted
watched a second of college football in
Yeah.
her life.
I
She
don't
would
think she
want
did.
me.
I don't think she did.
She would want us to live our lives to the fullest, and I'm happy right now, so let me be happy. A couple of the ranking. Could you imagine if Michigan all of a sudden decides to show up a 21-point underdog, a road dog, to Ohio State? I don't know.
That would be so sweet.
That would really throw a wrench in things.
Who would go? Would they still go, or would it be Penn State?
They would still go, I think, at that point. Well, no, because if Indiana wins, then they would still be a one-loss.
Yeah.
They'd be one loss, so then they would jump a two-loss
Yeah.
Ohio State. How about
Go
that?
Michigan.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything? The biggest ranked rivalries. You're gonna get Texas and Texas A&M, which is gonna be
That's going to be
That's
fun.
a challenge for Texas. That's probably one of the best team they're going to play this
And-
season.
and-
I didn't
outside of
realize
Georgia.
that they haven't played in a long time.
It's been a minute.
Justin Tucker was the kicker the last time.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah,
Wow.
for Texas.
Yeah, he's come, gone, and now he sucks at he's
Yeah.
this old ass kicker.
He ain't
So-
coming anymore.
You've got Notre Dame USC, which is always a fun one.
Yeah.
Only a 7
USC is good enough to play spoiler there.
Yeah, 7.5 points only for Notre Dame as a road favorite there. But then you also have, Arizona State. Who cares on that one? UCLA is relegated to just playing Fresno State, but, we digress. Then you have, let's see, LSU, Oklahoma. Loser loses their job, potentially. People are chanting "Fire Kelly" at the LSU.
Absolutely.
At the,
LSU should not be doing this bad, dude. They
Yeah.
pulled recruits from Alabama. How are you this bad? It's because
Brian
Brian
Kelly
Kelly's
needs to
horrible.
go.
yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing that we
Bring Ogeron back.
Yeah, that we didn't talk about,
Tigers.
how the Crimson Tide just absolutely folded, containing Jalen Milroe, just forced him in. I was watching that game while I was in the garage this past. It was just you put pressure on him, you locked him down. Alabama was rendered useless once they contained Milroe.
Yeah.
It was
You know what I realized
a clinic.
about Alabama? They don't have a lot of Jalen Milrose. They've had fucking A.J. McCarron. They've had a Tua. They've had a Bryce Young. They don't rely so much on a Jalen Milroe that they're relying on to scramble if things fall apart in the pocket. That's not their game. Alabama always has better athletes around the quarterback. It's not reliant on the quarterback. They're a
had
completely
Hurts,
different
though.
team. Yeah, but Hurts wasn't
And Tua was mobile.
Hurts, you could argue, I'm not even talking NFL. Hurts, Tua, Young were way better in the pocket than Milroe ever.
Yeah.
And those guys weren't relying on scrambling, and they had fucking athletes around them. Alabama's if Milroe has a bad game, they lose. If he has a great game, they win by a fucking
they're
blowout.
a lot more dependent on
They're a
him.
lot more dependent on the QB. That's not the Alabama way. And if you look at the past few years.
Yeah, and what we saw this past weekend with Oklahoma was just an absolute, like I said, a clinic of how to shut down Alabama when you can contain Jalen Milroe.
It's not the same team, man.
So no statue.
Nah.
No statue.
It doesn't change my opinion about DeBoer.
No
I think
statue.
DeBoer's still a good coach.
Yeah. Not quite yet on them statues. I don't necessarily know if they're going to be erecting any statues of
Erecting, what a word.
erecting any statues of the current head coach, general manager of the New York Giants. Since we have recorded, the Giants have benched, then cut Daniel Jones, started Tommy Cutlets, lost 30-7 or whatever the score was. Tommy Cutlets gets hurt. There's the possibility that, hey, are we thinking that maybe he can play, or do you just somehow Drew Lock is still on the outside looking in.
Put him in, coach.
In this entire situation. But on the other side, you had a franchise record in rushing with Saquon Barkley in all within a week since we recorded last. So you're talking about the embarrassment that is the New York Giants. I thought that Brian Daboll was a better coach than this. And obviously he's been put in a really shitty situation. But then Saquon is, doing what
over 300 all-purpose yards.
It's insane. He had 255, 260 something just, on the ground himself. Then you talk about the all-purpose side of things.
You also, I don't like what I'm always the one that give credit to your O-line. We said it in the beginning of the season. Saquon's about to run behind the best line he's ever had in his career. The numbers are proving it. But at some point, the O-line's doing their jobs. Probably the best line in the fucking league. But you have to give Saquon a lot of fucking credit, too. You don't run for 255 just because your line's that great. Saquon is that great. It's not just because he got lucky behind a line. This guy is fucking hitting gaps, and a lot of these runaway fucking 70-yard touchdowns, no one's even close to him. You can't. I will always credit the line, but they're in the line of fucking scrimmage, dude. Saquon is running away from everyone. No one can get him.
But Saquon doesn't do this equally. You don't put him back on the Giants and he does this, right?
No, not at all.
And that's kind of a fundamental problem with just the organization as itself. You get to a point where you have to decide whether or not you're going to pay Daniel Jones. You don't pay him the most, but you still pay him a lot of money. You play the game and you lose when there's a lot of pressure on you as a general manager and how the entire world views running backs, both from a fantasy perspective, from a cap perspective, all of this. You kind of played every card incorrectly, but also that you were in a way that you were kind of forced to do that. When people were talking about paying running backs, seemed oh my God, how could you do that? And then the Ravens and the Eagles paid Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley respectively, and they are being paid dividends for those things. You were in the same situation where you're paying, on the flip side, all of these quarterbacks all this money, and some of these things are not paying off. And unfortunately, you're backed between a rock and a hard place, and you were kind of forced to guess wrong. And that's exactly what happened.
It's also, when you look at the teams they came from, you keep Daniel Jones in place of Saquon, you fucking suck.
Yep.
You keep Will Levis in place of Derrick Henry, you fucking suck. It's laid out really right in front of you.
Yeah, and I think that's been kind of the danger, too, of what we've talked about when you're in this, arms race, literally arms race of paying quarterbacks. Where you go, we need to invest some money. We need to make sure enough money goes to a quarterback. And then where does the money exist? You're squabbling. When you think about this, they were squabbling between 11 and $13 million for Saquon. And now you look at his value, and you're talking about MVP level type of stuff too. And I think that it just kind of comes down to how jacked up people view certain positions and where money is allocated throughout the NFL.
It's
to
also,
say that $13 million was too much to pay a guy like Saquon Barkley.
It's also really easy. No, I shouldn't say it's really easy, but it's a lot more fun and maybe less taxing to put up the numbers that Saquon's putting up when you have Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on your team. Because the team is not relying on you like a workhorse, but you got to do everything. When you have one of the best fucking receivers in the league that can catch whatever Jalen Hurts throws his way.
And like you said, a great line as well.
Yeah, a great
Regardless
line.
of Kelsey.
They don't
retired.
even have a fully healthy defense. I mean, they just lost one of their best defensive ends. Probably his career's probably over. Graham tore his fucking shoulder. And that's one of their best DNs. And a lot of their starting corners are still hurt. I don't think we've seen the best of the Eagles. Their offense is just really fucking good right now.
I thought that Brian Daboll was a better coach And then obviously, like, there's all these things that break right, break left, where you anticipate incorrectly with the market for Saquon and whether or not you're going to franchise him and trade, all that, whatever. But then on the flip side, where you have Malik Neighbors, who is now your kind of like up-and-coming star, franchise hopeful wide receiver, who's basically almost like throwing coaches under the bus, being like, hey, listen, I didn't get the ball till it was 30-0. And then all of a sudden I get the ball, and, you know, obviously it's too late at that point. But I was like, I don't know. Like, seeing how Dable had been the offensive coordinator for the Bills ahead of this, like, I'm not trying to, like, be a dad about this, but I'm, like, kind of disappointed in Brian Dable. I don't know.
I don't support airing out dirty laundry, and you know, obviously with frustrations, you want to keep everything in the locker room, but Malik Neighbors is just looking out for a teammate, and I will always look out for a teammate before anyone else.
Sure.
Because Daniel Jones is no Patrick Mahomes, but I don't think Daniel Jones was the ultimate problem.
No,
I don't think
he's a
Dable
scapegoat.
I don't think Dable is a head coach. I think Dable is one of those ones that fall into the category of a great OC and a great assistant coach. He's not a head coach. Never been a fan of him.
Really?
Yeah. Daniel Jones, like, watch Daniel Jones do some Nick Foles fucking, you know, backup type shit where he succeeds in another team.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Daniel Jones, an A1 backup.
Where do you guys think? And he doesn't even have to be a backup at this point because he cleared waivers. He has the possibility of signing with a team who doesn't have to inherit that money now. And there are a couple of teams, one being the Cowboys, two being the 49ers. I don't know how serious Brock Purdy's injury is, but he missed this past week. I know that all too well.
I think the Cowboys signing would be insane to play the Giants on Christmas or whenever Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, I think Jerry Jones should absolutely sign him. Let him play the Giants and fucking kill him.
But I think that there are a couple of spots, especially if you want to either like say, hey, we're not going to be like super relevant for so long. So then like the Cowboys, who are basically eliminated from the playoffs, you get your like attractive white guy quarterback who's just like the quintessential, like, you know, if you could like AI your version into a Cowboys quarterback, it would be Daniel Jones. Or you have a team in need who has a little bit of uncertainty at the quarterback position in the injury with Brock Purdy. And now the 49ers, who would have thought might be the team that ends up busting our division winners parlay that pays out $5,000. So
how disappointing.
Where do you guys think that he ends up, Daniel Jones?
Cowboys.
And when do you think it? Do you think he signs like in the next?
I think for the fans' sake, it would be great if he signs before Thanksgiving. But I think Jerry Jones is
Even
looking.
if they signed him, he wouldn't play.
Why not?
Why not?
Because they haven't given Drew Lock. I think they'd go Drew Lock with this many days' notice.
No, but we're saying that if Daniel Jones joins the Cowboys, Drew Lock is on.
Oh,
is on the Giants.
Sorry.
I know it's kind of weird. So much has happened. It's just kind of like whose depth chart is which?
Well, and then don't they have South Dakota?
They've got Trey Lance.
Yeah.
But you know. Why
They're
not?
already off
In
of
a
them.
redemption game where it would be Cowboys versus
Yeah.
Giants, like you'd absolutely start the guy who's got a chip against you. You know their schemes. It's like the perfect thing. What more? Like what a marketing opportunity to sign a guy on Thanksgiving in what seems like a pretty irrelevant game to then bring him on and be like, yeah, go try and torch your former team. Who cares if you lose?
If you're in the Cowboys position right now, people are not looking for ways to watch you. You create that storyline, they're watching that game.
Yeah, it's marketing. It's marketing. Speaking of the Cowboys, that Cowboys-Commanders game at the end of the game was quite crazy. Where
I mean, there was a handful of games this weekend that were just what the fuck just happened games.
Yeah,
you know?
Cowboys Commanders probably at the top of that list
Yep.
with the kick return by Turbin, and then after he bobbled it, then you had the Terry McLaurin touchdown right towards the end of the game as well. Ultimately, the Cowboys win that game.
And then you had the Chiefs and the Panthers that came down to a 3-point game.
Yeah, they messed up. So we had, and we had it here on the podcast where we took the road favorites just as a, with the points. And the Chiefs certainly were one of the teams to mess that up.
Played down to the level of the Panthers. I won't say they weren't trying, but how the fuck do you not cover that?
Right. We had a $30 bet that paid $407. I was watching it happen. We got up to about $75, $76 on the cash out. And ultimately, we lost it at the end. But things were looking good there for us.
Another one was the Bears-Vikings.
Bears-Vikings, we had
overtime.
it at 3.5.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, if it wasn't the Chiefs that got us, it was that 3 points there for the Vikings.
Don't forget, I don't want to go back to this game necessarily, but that Commanders kicker is fired. I mean, that entire team did everything they can to come back. And granted, it shouldn't have been that close, but to miss a PAT.
You gotta go.
The Commanders' entire special teams was
Fired.
an absolute disaster. I mean, just literally, if you could put something into a literal fire, you would take the Commanders' special teams performance, put that tape and put it into a fire. It was atrocious how they performed from a kicking, from special team, just guarding, all that. So let's see, what else do we got here? We have the Texans found their way into another loss, which they're still favored to win the division, but it seems that the sophomore slump for C.J. Stroud continues.
Well, at least for our bet, I've always been worried about the Texans. I've always been worried about the Ravens. But there's no bigger concern than the fucking Niners right now. I feel like ultimately the Ravens and the Texans won't let us down, but the fucking Niners are last place in that division.
Right, so no Brock Purdy this past weekend, and then they lose 38-10 with no touchdown from Mr. CMC. Then you've got the Bills, Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals to close out your season. None of these are proven cakewalks at this point. And also a winter warning coming up this weekend in Buffalo. You got to love a good snow game. It does feel like it feels hard sometimes to pick up the previous Thursday night football game, but I freaking love a good snow game.
God.
And I love Jameis Winston in a snow game. God, it made everything tingle.
Those snowflakes were huge.
Jameis Winston.
It was so
they
great.
were so big.
It was a true snow game.
It should be an NFL requirement for Jameis Winston to be mic'd up
all the
fucking
time.
game. When he was trying to do a hard count and he goes, "Somebody jump off sides, man." he's like losing his voice, going, "Hot, hot, hot. Come on, somebody jump off sides."
If you haven't, I'll send you the link. And anyone at home, there is 13 straight minutes of just Jameis Winston mic'd up, spliced together. That is just pure gold.
He is. I mean, as a Browns fan, which I've said too many times on this podcast, you're so used to being abysmal that you find the joy in things outside of winning.
Sure.
And it's I would be totally fine with going a whole nother season of being shitty if it meant I just got more Jameis Winston.
And I think that why not, right? And you might actually, here's the thing. He's been as hot as anyone at this point.
Yeah,
so
he's in the
you're not going to win a Super Bowl with
on
him,
the
but you might be
scale of
somewhat relevant,
exactly
500.
exactly.
So, yeah.
On the scale of Browns quarterbacks, he's towards the top of the list.
He's certainly kind of like the one who's just
it's like Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, and then
that the whole house is on fire, but there's something funny that's also happening where you just kind of can enjoy the thing. You
but
go,
there's
hey, look at that. Yeah.
There's Jameis roasting a marshmallow.
That is what he would be doing.
So, that things are not good, but a breath of fresh air there for Jameis.
That was just such a fun game.
It was, yeah.
And I even was texting you guys it was fully set up for a classic Browns loss. Left them too much time. against Pittsburgh. They could have easily drove down and won that game, and they didn't. The Browns held them, gave them a 3 or 4 and out, and they won the fucking game. It was magical.
I was impressed about how well they could throw. Each team could throw the football in that game.
How about Jerry Jeudy waking up?
Dude, yeah, that third-rate wide receiver compared to, not my word, someone else. I think it's Ryan Clark who said that.
What is
He's
Ryan
still good,
know?
man.
So
You put a good quarterback with Jerry Jeudy. He's putting up numbers.
But yeah, like you're trying to throw the ball in a blizzard, and that rock is just, your hands are ice cold. The rock is so hard.
It's
and
diamond hard.
Everything, and they're just slinging it around. And I go, like, how are they doing that? Like, putting that, like, roasting those things next to the fire or something.
You see the new strategy that receivers and quarterbacks are doing? They're putting on the medical blue gloves underneath.
Yeah, I've seen that.
The gloves. It keeps their hands warm.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they used to just
like
rely.
a latex glove?
Yeah, like the
Yes.
latex glove. They used to just rely on the hand
Creates
warmers
more warmth.
Yeah.
and even their little warmer around their waist. But they do the latex glove underneath the receiver or quarterback glove, and it keeps their hands warm and sweaty.
Really?
Yeah.
And don't fuck with me on this.
No.
Like, actually-
College kids are doing it.
Yeah, no,
pro
this
guys
is
are
a
doing
real
it.
thing.
And then what? They like tape it so that
No,
like,
they don't have to
moisture
tape it
can
at
get
all.
in?
I mean, it
No, no,
sticks.
no.
It sticks because you're sweating. So you put the latex glove in first, and then you do your
And then you do your
normal
cutter's
glove.
or whatever.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it keeps their hands warm and sweaty. So you're having more grip, and it's not fucking
You
freezing.
can still feel it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because what happens?
It's like a little blanket.
I mean, I played football in Utah, and once you get to October, it's cold as fuck.
Yeah.
And I had a wide receiver coach, who had this whole thing about not wearing gloves at all. And it was like somebody was literally picking up a rock and throwing at you.
Yeah. I mean,
and you're catching it with your hands. It's
crazy.
not great.
I had no idea that
And
was the tactic.
that's really more of like keeping your hands warm because of the type of gloves that you have when you're catching a ball or throwing a ball. That's more of a skill level position because when you're a lineman, you have those padded gloves that it does keep you warm. But like I've played football in the 28-degree weather, but I'm not the type to like I had lineman gloves and they were like the 3/4 cut where my fingertips are exposed, but my hands were never cold. But I also never wear long sleeves. I just don't. I feel like it restricts my movement. I wore like kicker pads.
Sure.
Like I just didn't like the lineman pads and all that stuff. But in that 28-degree game on Halloween that I played as a senior, my entire arm was like I stuck it in the freezer, and it was sticky. It was that fucking cold.
Dang.
And it hurt so fucking much.
And most importantly, not only doesn't it keep your hands warm, but it keeps them soft. So the ball is going to be hard regardless.
Yeah.
But if you can keep your hands soft, so when it hits your hands, there's a little bit of cushion to create that squeeze. That's the money.
Create that squeeze. Where do we think so the cash outs have been suspended on our bet. It's not
Forever?
Not forever, but like right
Forever?
now.
If we didn't cash out on the previous offers, it's not going to get as high as that ever again. So we just ride this shit out.
Things have gotten very complicated with the way that like tiebreakers and everything is going to work for the NFC West, which is not how I thought that was going to go.
The thing that we can still kind of hope for is the division we're losing. It's not a runaway. It's not like there's an 8-1 team.
Right.
They're all within 2 games of each other. So the Niners could easily go from 4 to 2 to 1.
Yeah, they're 5-6. The like 6-5 is the division leader right now.
Yeah, so they'll be
Obviously,
hopefully they
there's-
can pull it out.
Yeah.
And maybe if they're riding second behind Arizona and Arizona keeps winning and the cash out's presented, maybe we take it.
Maybe, yeah. It's
Or-
possible.
We do a
Trying to throw more money at this?
no. Well, yeah. What's the term?
Hedge?
Hedge.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah.
We hedge, and we put a big bet, for us at least,
Yeah.
on like the Cardinals or whoever, and then that will make us as much money.
Just straight up? Like just a division like Cardinals themselves.
Yeah, because
but right now they're at like plus 120. That's not crazy.
Yeah, but those odds aren't crazy because it's still a close enough division.
Yeah.
We could put, $60 on plus 120 or
No, we
100.
put we
100.
put we
You
put
put 100.
we put 100 each.
You want $300.
It's not that safe of a hedge because what if Seattle fucking wins? it?
Yeah, because
Then
Seattle's
we're
right
fucked.
there too.
That's the thing that makes it complicated.
We could do 150 each on Seattle and Arizona. Maybe we don't win the same amount, but we cover at least what we're putting out.
Right. You still end up money ahead.
Yeah, and then
You get your money back.
and then the Rams win it, and then we just fucking cut off our dicks.
Right. I mean, there's definitely a math equation in which, no joke, this probably works in our favor, right? Like where you could like pencil this out and be like, okay, at the very least, we get all of our money back. Maybe you don't win your
Thankfully, we don't have anybody here that could
$5,000.
figure that out.
We've got a valedictorian upstairs, so we'll ask her.
Oh yeah, she knows.
Yeah, she knows. Let's see a couple of other news and notes. You know who doesn't? Who knows what's going to happen there with Aaron Rodgers? He's there on Pat McAfee saying, "Well, I
I'm
don't
sick
know.
of it.
I
I'm
don't know
done."
if I'm going to come back next year. If I come back as a Jazz fan, who cares? Who
I'm done.
fucking cares about you, Aaron?"
Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers when
Yeah.
he starts winning again.
Oh my God! It was just kind of like, it was just like a grasp for relevancy, and I just don't care.
And I couldn't agree more. I was thinking about that because I saw the same clip. It sounds like that you saw.
Yeah.
And for the first time, my thought was,
Who gives a shit?
yeah, who gives? This is all you have.
Yeah.
Like you've become irrelevant, and you found somebody, Pat McAfee, who I love, who's willing to give you the airtime, and you're just milking it. But outside of that, you have not completely, but you are becoming completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
And it's almost like subconsciously maybe he's accepting that, and that's why he's doing this whole I want my face out there. I want to be on Pat McAfee. I want to do these shows because I realize that I fucking suck and I'm going to go nowhere next year.
Yeah. Who cares? You know what also goes nowhere is the charges against Tyreek Hill. A couple of other news and notes. Tyreek Hill, charges dropped for the arrest that he had. We all remember that earlier on this season.
I do.
Do you know why the charges were dropped against Tyreek Hill?
Too big a dick.
Well,
he had a Bugatti.
Very potent sperm for that Tyreek Hill, but not about his dick. The reason his charges were dropped for his arrest is that the police officer failed to appear in court, which we all would love to have happen for our 27 in a 20 school zone thing, but that cop always shows up. But all of a sudden you have this very public arrest and the cop doesn't show up, and then all of a sudden you're absolved of guilt.
It was his birthday. He refused to leave his own party.
You do realize that that's like on purpose, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I absolutely know that was on purpose. However, it is a bit ironic considering the things of which, it's like we've all been pulled over for these like really stupid things.
I've never been pulled over.
You're right. Yeah, you've never been pulled over, never gone to jail. Like getting freaking like my tags have been expired, and I go like, oh, you're pulling me over for expired tags, and then I go to court, and then you're there, and you took that time, but then Tyreek Hill's arresting officer fails to appear, and I know he was never going to.
So you think you're bigger than the law?
I don't think I'm bigger than the law. I just
a
think that
white
it's
thing.
ironic that of all,
It's
no,
just
it's
another
not. Stop
cis white
that.
male.
Stop it. Both of you.
Spell privilege.
Stop it.
Capital
I do know how
P.
to.
Privilege.
Is there a D, right? Like, that's actually kind of like.
No, there isn't a D.
Like ledge. Like, it's.
Legee, dude.
Right. But it feels like there should be a D in there.
Ledge.
Ledge, yeah.
You're married to a valedictorian.
ledge, not
It's
ledge.
a sad thing that you're.
But anyway, so if Tyreek Hill doesn't get off in other ways, he gets off because the cop.
He
doesn't
always
show
gets
him.
off,
He
you know what I
does.
mean?
That's where I was going. Thank you. Thank you for taking it where I thought it was going to go.
That's called putting a bow on it.
Yeah. that's you teed me up there, Pete.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's why
Prime rib, you didn't.
I tried. I thought that you were going to pick that one up, and you did not. This week in NFL, then we'll talk a little. Let's see. We've got Dan Hurley is a thing. We can talk about that here in a second. Our Thanksgiving games. I'm wondering.
There's 3, right?
There are 3.
We got to bet on it.
Bears, Lions, Giants, Cowboys, Dolphins, Packers. Your lines are Detroit -10. You have Dallas -3.5. They're at home. And then Packers -3.5 at home against the Dolphins. Those are your 3.
That's not. I mean,
what are y'all
last
thinking?
week we felt good and it fell apart.
It did.
If we're just going winners minus the spread, just going winners, I think Lions, obviously.
Cowboys. I would take the Cowboys over the Giants.
I would. Well, it depends. Here's the thing: if they put in Drew Lock, I'm not so sure. I feel like might be a Drew Lock redemption game. We've seen that before with the
but if you're
Seahawks
taking, if you're
against
taking
49ers.
2 dumpster fires, the only thing I'm going to base it off of is what happened last week and what's happening with the current team. Malik Neighbors isn't happy. Their head coach is gone. The Cowboys ended up beating a playoff contender, and they're at home. I'm not relying on Dak. I feel like I would, with a better defense, I would go with Dallas.
So, okay, so you have Dallas. Both
And then Miami, who?
those Packers.
That's
So
close.
Yeah.
That's really close.
So your first 2 are domes, and then you have a 28-degree game,
Packers.
the night game.
have to go
Packers.
Tuesday.
against.
What does it look?
So you're taking. We would take all favorites on Thanksgiving Day. Is that what you're saying?
My gut reaction was I was gonna take the Lions. I don't know yet if it's spread or money line. The Cowboys, and I was gonna take the Dolphins. But playing in Lambeau
28 degrees
in the cold, I don't think I can go against Green Bay.
So we have built our Thanksgiving Day 6-leg parlay in which we have a winner of each game tied into a running back to score in that game. So we have the Detroit Lions, and we have bet it down to 6.5. The line is 10. We've bet it to 6.5 with David Montgomery to score. That's at plus 108. Then we have the Packers to beat the Dolphins with Josh Jacobs scoring for the Packers, and that is at plus 120. And then we have Rico Dowdle to score with the Dallas Cowboys to win on Thanksgiving Day. A classic. This is what heals America, boys and girls. That
Cowboys.
that 6-leg parlay, all those tied in, plus 11.35. We're each going to put in $10. $30 pays out $370.
I love that.
It's a win.
I love that.
So
It's a win.
it'll make even a guy like Dan Hurley happy, who is very angry after a couple of losses. But it's pretty early. Like, do you think? And we're gonna wrap everything up here. But like losses now, Duke loses, all that. Like, how consequential are losses at this point? Doesn't
You'd rather lose in November.
yeah
For sure.
Especially if you have a young team, and majority of these top dogs, like top-ranked teams, with the exception of like Kansas, they're young teams with freshmen. You'd rather lose in November and take it as a learning, as a lesson. But UConn losing isn't because they're young. UConn losing was because their coach is a goddamn psychopath. Imagine if he's doing this with the Lakers, how that would go.
yeah.
That's why he can't coach in the league, because the way he coaches fits with like college players
Yeah,
and
with
17,
college.
18-year-olds. You can't do this with Anthony Davis. You can't do
sure.
this with LeBron or any of those guys. Like, Dan Hurley is a Hurley. That's how Hurleys are. Their dad, Bobby, him, like they're crazy.
Yeah.
Their passion for the game sometimes, as more often than not, it brings good to the team. But in that case, losing that one of the two losses they got, it's because he got a fucking tech. because he lost his fucking mind.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you got to control yourself at some
In
point.
an invitational, it's
And
Thanksgiving week.
A tie game or a 1-point game,
Yeah.
you don't want to be the reason why your team loses.
Yeah. The reason why your team loses is because of a guy like Cooper Flagg. I'm actually kind of surprised. Like, you talk about how bad the Blazers are, and we've talked about in the NBA teams that are going to be really bad. It is kind of still shocking that you see it, like teams like the Blazers that are trying to lose would be like 7-11 at this point. Be the Washington Wizards, it'd be 2-14. All right. And surprising, the 76ers at 3-13 to start the season, where my Cleveland Cavaliers at 17-1. So
It's too early to start making it look like you're tanking. You kind of do that in
why not?
You
I
do
mean,
that in January.
I
you
mean,
know?
unless what are you if you're the Philadelphia 76ers at 3-13?
You still got to sell tickets.
So.
You got to make it seem like you're not just trying to lose every game.
Is Joel Embiid a loser?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a fucking loser.
He's a loser.
He's not as big a loser as Ben Simmons, but Joel Embiid
He's
is a fucking loser.
Yep.
He
Okay.
is Mr.
I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Clarified that one.
There's at some point this whole trusting the process, you got to throw that shit out the window. You refuse to play. The main difference between him and you could kind of say the same thing about Kawhi. There's two things. Kawhi's more likable.
Yeah.
And Kawhi's won a championships. So if Kawhi ends up going the Joel Embiid route and never plays again, he's got shit. He's got trophies and rings.
Yeah. Finals MVP, right?
Embiid has been regarded as this guy who's supposed to the savior of the franchise. And the fucking MVP he won last year, that was not deserved. That's Jokic's MVP.
Yeah.
They just refuse to give a European guy who's awkward and lanky
A back-to-back-to-back.
third
Yeah.
MVP because that changes the history of the league.
Yeah.
But Embiid did not deserve that. He was crying for that MVP award. That's why it was
He
given
needs
to
to
him.
give that award to Kendrick Perkins, who was the one who raised up all the eyebrows about why they're not.
You know who's
mentioned.
playing better than Embiid? Some guy with nail polish on his fucking team. That's a rookie.
Who's
That played at Duke. You take all the hate that you could stack on that kid, played at Duke, has fingernail polish, does TikTok dances, and he is doing better than every guy on that team. Paul George's also on that team. Let's not forget. These guys are...
People
Isn't that
forget.
wild? I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're like quote unquote big three has played like 5 minutes together, and I'm saying that sarcastically, but also very seriously.
Fuck Embiid. Just leave. Go to the fucking G League.
Well,
where he belongs.
join Bronny down there. I know that there's a lot of shit going on with Bronny about whether or not he's traveling or not with the G League team.
Look,
A little special treatment there. For Bronny.
I will never, ever blame or clown LeBron for what he's doing for his kid, because you'd be a fucking hypocrite if you're a father and you had a chance to do that. I'd do the same. But Bronny's not pro caliber. He's just not. He wasn't even good in college. He averaged 2.3 points in college. Bronny's not an NBA player.
Yeah.
He's not. He can hoop, but he's not NBA caliber.
This is like that phrase of been there, done that, got the T-shirt. This feels like that moment of them just stepping on the court together to just make some sort of headline or statement or in the annals of history. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt,
Yeah.
and then now you can move.
Agreed.
The thing that I really feel bad for is it's not Bronny's fault he's not as good. I mean, imagine trying to live up to your dad and that name and all that. That's a lot. That is a lot to carry as a fucking teenager. But the thing that I feel bad for is in a year or two, his brother is he's good enough to make the league. He's good enough to be good in college, and he's good enough to make the league. When his brother comes in and starts doing better, this is kind of like without the injury. No one expected LaMelo Ball to just be doing better than Lonzo, because Lonzo is skilled. The
Right.
only thing that is working against Lonzo is injuries.
Sure.
But Lonzo's an NBA player, but LaMelo's fucking killing it. Bryce is going to be better than Bronny. And when he comes in, I feel bad because it's going to absolutely overshadow him. It's going to bring up all that conversation.
Because there's no injuries to make that excuse.
No, he's just not good enough. But your brother's going to be better than you.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the main focal point of people trashing Bronny even more. So like Peter. I mean, you know he's the real.
I'll be here.
I like that
Season
shirt.
7, 9,
Peter.
anything like that. What? This?
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. It's probably Target. That's probably what it is.
Target.
Yeah.
Duluth Trading.
They have incredible commercials.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, boys.
Happy
I hope-
Thanksgiving.
I hope that it is everything that you hope. Not smoking a turkey. I'm just going to be roasting the turkey this Thanksgiving.
Because you're scared.
I am scared, yes.
But you know what's going to
You have
make you feel better? This bet hitting.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
will feel better.
This
will
bet
That
hitting.
will feel a lot better.
Even if
Did
you
I
make
place that? Let me make sure that I confirm.
Well, place
that
it
I
and text
actually-
it to us because
Okay,
I'm
I
gonna
need
be
to actually place that.
I'm gonna be in Washington.
Could
so
you imagine if we won that bet? I
You
go,
know,
oh,
you know
my bad,
us.
guys.
You know us.
I'm also gonna be in Washington where I can't
We
access my
can't
DraftKings,
post
so
bets,
I
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
I need
You
to look at this via text.
That was scary. I would not have placed that bet had I not. Okay, I'm going to press the button now that I've signed in. Okay, it's memorialized. I'll send it out. We'll
I
post on-
swear to God, if
Yeah,
that
we'll
was
show
the
it.
case,
Yes.
where we were thinking about this bet and you didn't place it,
I'd make you pay us.
I would have burned your house down for
Yeah,
you.
again.
pay
Yeah.
us.
Well,
Well, I'm thankful for the both of you. This
Samesies.
This podcast is something I look forward to every week. It's a blessing, and you guys are great friends. I'm thankful for all of it.
and we love you. And we love you.
Stay alive.
Yeah, very thankful for all 7 of you who are listening.
Yeah.
In 19
We've
countries.
never made this much money in our lives.
Yeah,
So
how do
we
you-
appreciate you guys.
Everything goes back. Into
Just make sure you send us Christmas gifts.
yeah, you know, first subscribe.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Clear eyes.
full hearts.
Can't lose.